Hi there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. I recently put out a video where I used glue as a resist, an ink resist. So for that today I'm going to be using the multi-medium in the matte finish. This is what I use for my glue. It's in all my little glue bottles. And I'm using it today because I want the reverse of the stencil that I'm going to use. So you can see how the inside of the stencil is the plastic part, whereas if I do it this way, the inside of the whole pattern there, the sun ray, will be the colourful part. So I hope that makes sense. But anyway, all I'm going to do is use a palette knife to just scrape this on, the same that I would as any embossing paste or any modelling paste or texture paste, anything like that. And I'm just trying to get a relatively smooth finish to it. And so not too much. I don't want any dimension with this. I just want it to be a resist. And if you wanted there to be colour underneath, then you would colour your panel, then add the glue, and then add another colour on top. So you can see the glue is nice and wet, and I'm just going to put that aside to dry. Now moving on, I have got these cards here. These are the Tonic Kraft coloured cardstock cards and envelopes that come together. I accidentally misordered a few too many packs of these, so I do need to use them in creative ways. So I will use them as my craft cardstock for a little while. And all I'm going to do is add some stickered adhesive to the back of this because I'll do some die cutting. Now this is a really good double-sided adhesive. The other one that I really like to use is the scrapbook.com one. However, that is really thick and it's not easy to die cut through all of the layers, whereas this one here is really thin and it's a nice permanent adhesive. So that's why I'm choosing to use this one here, because I'm going to be doing some die cutting. Now I have some of the Hero Arts Infinity circles here. These are just a really nice set of dies that are very close together, which is what I want for this project. We are going to be creating a flat shaker card. So no bulk at all, but it will still have the nice shaker sounds and everything that we are used to with shaker cards. So I've just chosen two little circles here and I die cut that out twice, so I have two the same size. I kind of was guessing a little bit as I was going along here about the bits that I've needed, so you don't necessarily have to have both of those. I am taking the larger of the two circles that I used and I am die cutting some acetate so that I have a nice acetate circle. I have got two of these just to make life a little bit easier here. As I said, I wasn't 100% sure where I was going with this. But obviously if you watch through the entirety of this video and you choose to recreate something similar, you'll soon know the pieces that you need and things. I do have this little Christmas tree here which I'm going to die cut out of some scrap paper because I am going to make a little scene inside of my tiny little circle shaker there. So I am just cutting my own hillside. And if you aren't into the whole Christmas cards thing yet, then you could definitely just make this for any occasion and change up what you put inside of your little shaker. So it could be adjusted for any occasion. I am taking the same circle that I used, the craft circle that I'm putting everything on is just one from the inside of the circles that I cut to the left hand side of the screen there. And that will just help me line everything up really easy. So I'm using the same circle to die cut my little hillside, and that way it'll have all the same angle as the other circles. And then my little tree will go there in front. Now my little craft background, so it has the stickered adhesive on the back of course. Now I'm using this for a few reasons. One, I just wanted to use up those kind of scrap circles that I had created. And two, I didn't want the background to be white because there was already going to be so much white in the front part of my little scene there. So I am adding a little bit of what I'd like to call snow perhaps into the background using some of the texture paste, and this is just a white one so it will be fine. Then using a little bit of the liquid glue, I'm just going to kind of dress up the tree a little bit and also give the card a little tiny bit of sparkle. Now I'm not putting a lot of glue on, but I'm definitely not skimping, so it'll make it a little bit dimensional as well. And then I'm going to put some of the little Nuvo white glitter on, and you can kind of see how that is going to dry really nicely with a little bit of sparkle for my tree. Now I chose to go nice and simple by using a tree to go on my little scene here, but of course you could go through your stash and find anything that would work. Lots of different things would work here. I am just going to build everything and put together my entire little shaker panel that will go on the front. And because this is a flat shaker, I don't want there to be any dimension to, the hillside or behind the tree, so I'm not going to add any foam tape or anything like that. I am just colouring in the little trunk of my tree to be nice and brown, and then as I said, adding some more liquid glue so that the little tree sits down flat. Now, as for things that you could put in this little shaker, it is very small, and because we are making a no bulk one, so there's going to be no foam tape or anything like that included, there are some things that obviously you're not going to be able to add, like you can't add little gems and things, but what I do really like putting in is kind of the more flat sequins. I also have some tiny little kind of caviar beads that I'm going to use today, but have a look through your stash and see what you can add in that's going to be nice and flat. Now, as I said, I die cut out 2 of those acetate circles, so I am just going to stick one down there, and you can see it's got that wee border edge on it, and that's the main reason that I put my little Kraft circle onto the acetate, is so that it had that wee edge to stick everything else to. So here is one of the little circles that we die cut at the beginning with the stickered adhesive on, and I'm putting that on top of the other acetate circle. So one of the acetate circles is underneath and one of them is on top, and they will end up sticking together. Now here is a little circle of just the die cut adhesive. Now this is the one where I used scrapbook.com adhesive and the 2 circles, the same as we used to make the frame, but I cut nothing but the double-sided adhesive. There is no cardstock there, so both sides are going to be sticky. Now I'm just going to put in some of these tiny little beads. As I said, these are very, very flat, and this is what we need for our shaker card. I'm going to pop the top on there by just removing half of the adhesive, and then there is that top part where I will be able to pop in the beads and everything will be sealed down the bottom. Make sure that you seal it really, really well, because you do not want anything escaping out. So that created a little pocket there, and I'm just going to tip some down the top. Now again, this is not one of those things that you can fill super full. You just want a little bit in there for a really nice effect, and then I will pull out the rest of the adhesive and close up my little shaker element. So this is not completely flat, obviously, but it is very flat in comparison to what it would be if we used foam tape. So there is a tiny bit of dimension. It's basically about 2 cardstock layers thick, but very little. So just a cute little shaker element to go on the front of my card. Now I'm going to come back to that glue resist part that we did, and I'm going to use some blueprint sketch, some chipped sapphire and some tumbled glass distress oxide inks to color this. Now I must admit that I kind of changed my plan at this point. So don't get me wrong, I probably could have just used the stencil as is, but for my original plan I wanted the opposite effect, but it was still fun and I can still use this panel, so nothing is going to waste. Now I'm adding the tumbled glass in the middle and then the blueprint sketch from the outside. However, I will add the chipped sapphire right to the very edges, and that will make it nice and dark. In my head, I guess I was probably going for something like a little nighttime sky or something like that. Make sure that you wipe off all of the excess ink that will be sitting on top of our glue resist. And as I said, if you are interested in this technique, then I did another card not too long ago using the same technique, and I will try and link that down below, or just have a look back on my channel a couple of videos ago. I have this Christmas stamp set here. This is going to be my main Christmas stamp set this year, and I'm just going to stamp it on the bottom of that Kraft cardstock. This is the same card that I used to cut the circles out of for my little flat shaker card, so I'm just trying to use up as much of it as I can, and I'm just making it into a nice thin sentiment strip that will go across the middle. I found this tiny little bow die in my stash. I'm not sure of the set that it came to, but I did die cut it out in some silver mirror cardstock. I have cut my card front down to 4 by 5 1/4 inches, and that will go on a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card base. And then my nice little flat shaker panel here is going to go right in the center. And I'm just trying to line everything up so that I have the sentiment going down the middle there at the bottom. And I also have cut a little thin, tiny strip of silver mirror cardstock, and that will kind of be like the string that is holding up this little ornament. And remember that little bow that I showed you just before? I'm going to pop that just up the top. But if you didn't have the die cut for this, then you could just create your own little bow out of some cotton or twine. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this Christmas card and give a flat shaker a go. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks, bye!